I'm excited for today's video because we are in Wilsonville, and Wilsonville is one of the top suburbs in the Portland metropolitan area. It's one of my favorite suburbs. I live near here. There's a lot to love about Wilsonville and probably very little to dislike. We'll go over both of those though, and I'm going to give you my take on Wilsonville in today's video. All that starts now. Hey everyone, Seth Marchant with the Home Team Brokers here, coming to you from Villebois in Wilsonville here today. I'm gonna run you through some of my pros and cons. I do them a little bit different than some of these other videos. If you've watched some of my other pros and cons, it's not like 5 pros and 5 cons. There's a lot of things that might be a pro to some people, but might be a con to others. So I'm gonna go over some of the the quirks and features and nuances of Wilsonville and explain to you why it might be a pro or why it might be a con, or maybe to some people it'll be both. The way I would describe Wilsonville, it's very suburban and rural here, very similar to Westland, which is next door. Wilsonville is about 22-23 minutes south of Portland without traffic. It can easily be about twice that with traffic. It can definitely get congested here. I-5 runs right through Wilsonville and is typically congested kind of regardless of the time of day. Wilsonville was established in the 1800s, late 1800s, I think it was 1880, largely a farming community, although a lot of the development has come here in the past few decades. So it has a newer feel to it. Most of the houses here are newer, most of the commercial space here is newer. So despite being older, it definitely has a new vibe to it, but it's still also kind of got that rural feel to it. Still a lot of farms around here, a lot of undeveloped land, the country classic, which is an equestrian like hunter jumper event takes place here every year. So there's a lot of equestrian properties here, and geographically it's pretty flat here. We're about 50 feet above sea level, and I mention that because a lot of Portland is not going to be flat. Now that really probably wasn't too relevant to most people. There might be some people out there looking for a flat piece of land that don't like hills. Maybe you're older and you've got bad knees or whatever it may be, but other than that, that's not usually going to dictate where somebody lives too often in Portland. But that's changing, and I think that's because of the weather the last couple years. As you might know, there's a lot of hills in Portland, and when we get snow or ice in Portland, because of the hills, the town essentially shuts down. Even if we get 2, 3, 4 inches of snow, it's almost kind of like a national joke. There's a lot of people that like to make fun of us, people from like Minnesota or Massachusetts or wherever you guys get 12 feet of snow every year, like to laugh at us when the town shuts down over a couple of inches of snow, but it's due to the hills. So if you're on a hill, which a lot of people in Portland are, you may have a tough time getting to or from your home when we get snow or ice. And that just wasn't a thing growing up. I've lived here my entire life. I can probably count on my hands the number of times we had snow days and missed school growing up. It was very, very few and far between. Whereas the past 2 or 3 years, we've probably had more snow or ice days than probably the past 20 or 30 years combined. So the weather here is changing, and so that might be a factor for some people. The reason why the city shuts down is because people just aren't used to driving in the snow, and with those hills, people inevitably crash into the ditch, cars start to pile up, the roads close, people can't get to work, and the city essentially shuts down. Now, it's usually mom and pop stores, the big box stores, gas stations, stuff like that. Those are usually still open, but basically the whole town kind of takes a snow day when this happens. And this past year probably had 4, 5, 6 of those days where like pretty much everything shut down. We're in May right now. We had snow just 3 weeks ago, and we had almost the 90s. We had high 80s about a week ago. So the weather has definitely been a lot different. So just know that Wilsonville is going to be a flat area. If you're somebody that maybe doesn't want to have to deal with the snow and the ice, this is probably going to be a better spot for you. And that's assuming that the weather trends that we've seen continue here. All right, now so running through some of these pros and cons, like I said, I'm gonna break it down a little bit different. The first thing here is gonna be growth. You do have a lot of growth in Wilsonville. Like I mentioned, a lot of the growth has come over the past few decades. There's about 26,000 people here. There's a lot of new construction here, and there will be a lot of new construction here in the future. So the pro for that is going to be that you can feel confident that your real estate is going to appreciate at a high rate. You're gonna get all the other benefits with growth, like new businesses and new restaurants. The downside of that is going to be if you don't like congestion, you're going to probably experience more congestion here in the coming decades. And like I mentioned, the freeway here, I-5, that goes right through Wilsonville does get very congested. I mean, it's really like clockwork, regardless of the time of day or the day of the week. There's almost always congestion on that part of I-5. It usually alleviates about half a mile south of Wilsonville. Another pro that draws people here is the schools. You've got a lot of great schools here. There's one high school. This is the Westland Wilsonville School District. There's one high school in Westland, which is Westland High School, and one in Wilsonville, which is Wilsonville High School. One slight difference and one thing to know about these schools: Wilsonville is in a 5A association. We have 6 associations in the state of Oregon, so the 6 being the largest. So Wilsonville is just below the largest association. So maybe if you have kids that are in sports, competitive sports, you want them to compete at the highest levels, usually the 6A schools are going to have the most competition, and of course going to get the most notoriety for all those state titles. Now, Wilsonville is a very highly rated high school, and their athletics are very competitive. So they do have great athletics, but just again, know that it's 5A, not 6A. Wilsonville also has really great shopping. You have a Costco and a Target here. Those are 2 stores that people inevitably ask about. They are on the east side. On the west side, you have a Fred Meyer. If you're not familiar, it's kind of like a Walmart. You've got groceries, home goods, usually have a garden center. So if you're on the east side of I-5, Costco and Target are probably going to be right up the street for you. If you're on the west side, which is where I'm at now in Villebois, you're going to have to get through a little bit of congestion to get there, but it's probably not going to be anything more than, like, say, a 10-minute drive or so. So all of the shopping for pretty much everybody that lives in Wilsonville, regardless of where you're at, east side or west side of I-5, it's going to be close by. And then that kind of takes me into, we could talk the next pro, which is being right on I-5. It feels a little bit awkward having an interstate go right through the middle of town. For a lot of people, this is going to be a pro. Being close to an interstate, a major freeway, is going to be a pro. If you've ever lived far away from a major freeway or an interstate, maybe if you live somewhere out in the sticks, you know, down one of those windy roads, always a pain being far away from some sort of major road. But at the same time, it might be a con for some people, because like I said, it is congested here. You will experience a fair amount of congestion, and quite frankly, the reality of it, like I mentioned, growth, you're probably going to get a little bit worse over the years. Probably not going to get better. So up to you on the freeway going through the middle of town, pro or con. And maybe if you're fortunate enough, you won't have to commute. There is a fair amount of jobs here in Wilsonville. It's a fair amount of large companies. There's Xerox, Siemens, Cisco is here. So this isn't exactly a bedroom community. This is a community where people also work and live. So it is possible that you might not have to even deal with the highway or deal with the commute. In general, the jobs here would probably be, compared to the rest of the Portland area, for the suburbs, a pro. All right, a few more things that are great about Wilsonville. You are very close to wine country. We are in the Willamette Valley, which is known for its wine. So if you like to go wine tasting, you're going to be close to that. There is a fair amount of things to do. There's a family fun center here called Bullwinkles that is a pretty big attraction. I think, you know, growing up, again, I've lived here my whole life, people would go to Bullwinkles from pretty far away. People would like go from like Hillsborough or Beaverton or Gresham. You know, people would travel like an hour away to go down to Bullwinkles. So it's kind of a big attraction. These days we have probably a little bit more entertainment around the Portland area, so probably not people traveling quite as much as they used to. Beyond that, like I mentioned, there's a lot of farms here. If you're not familiar with farms, the farms here are really great. If you're not, or if you're just not familiar kind of with the farm scene in general, you know, if you're in Arizona, maybe California, Texas, farms are a big thing here in Oregon as far as entertainment and things to do. Especially if you have kids, the farms here run not quite year round. They're gonna run 6, 7, 8, maybe 9 months out of the year. So in the spring and the summertime, farms are going to have fruit and flowers. And when you get into the fall time, then it's gonna be pumpkins and apple cider and corn mazes. Get closer to winter time, then it's going to be Santa Claus pictures and hot cocoa and trees, you know, tree farms, cutting down your own trees. So there's a lot that the farms offer for people to do here, and there's a lot of farms in, like I mentioned, in the Wilsonville area. We go to Frog Pond Farm, which is in Wilsonville, pretty often. No affiliation with them. I don't know the owner or anything like that. It's just a place that we enjoy going. going to be a fair amount of things that you can do outdoors in and around Wilsonville. Probably going to list that overall as a pro. As you might imagine, being this far out in the suburbs, there's not a whole lot of nightlife, so things to do for younger people probably going to fall a little bit more into the cons bucket. But overall, I would say Wilsonville, as far as things to do, is going to be a pro. We do have the Willamette River also runs right through Wilsonville, so if you're a water person, boating, paddleboarding, kayaking, whatever it may be, this is a great spot for you as well. For you retirees, Wilsonville does have one of the top retirement destinations, probably in the Portland metro area. It's called Charbonneau, and we do have a video on retirement if you wanna watch that video here. And then also one of the great things about Wilsonville, it's low crime, very similar to a lot of the other surrounding areas like Westland, for example. I think Westland was #1 in lowest crime in the state of Oregon for last year, for 2022. Wilsonville, I don't know where they're ranked at actually, but they're gonna be very close. It's gonna be very similar. Not a whole lot of difference there, but definitely considered one of the more desirable places to be as far as that goes. So if you're thinking about moving here, there are a lot of options, a lot of single family homes here, a lot of larger homes. So if you're looking for a 4 or 5 bedroom, this is going to be good for you. Homes here are going to be a little bit more expensive, so it's not going to be the cheapest place. Property taxes are going to be a little bit higher as well. There are a fair amount of condos and townhouses. So if single family home, which average right now is probably around mid 600s, if that's out of your range, you can get into like a condo or a townhouse closer to like maybe the 400s or so as we speak. And if you have questions about that, we help people relocate all the time to Oregon. I'm a licensed broker in the state of Oregon. You can call, text, email, or click the link below in the description if you want to get into our calendar and schedule a Zoom call with us. This is a good market to buy in right now because there is a fair amount of inventory. The new construction going on right now is in the Frog Pond subdivision. Yes, it's the same name of that farm that I mentioned that my family often goes to. And then in Villebois, which is where I'm at right now. Richmond American Homes is building in Frog Pond right now. That was the home of the 2019 Street of Dreams, and Taylor Morrison is the builder that's building in Villebois right now. Both, I believe, have pretty good incentives. I've seen Taylor Morrison incentives go between 2 and 3% cash back of the purchase price. Sometimes you can get some design credits as well. So any questions about buying new or buying a resale, definitely reach out to us. All right, the final thing that I'm going to say about Wilsonville is that kind of makes it a little bit different than some of the other surrounding towns. Again, comparing similar surrounding towns, Lake Oswego, West Lynn, Oregon City, Wilsonville does not have like a dedicated like downtown. They do have an old town, but they don't have an actual downtown. They have a town center. But the town center itself, which is really nice, it just feels like a big strip mall. In fact, if you go across the street, across Wilsonville Road, it just kind of, it's the same thing across the road. It's kind of hard to know where the town center ends and where it begins. So if you're somebody that kind of likes to have a downtown, you know, like for example, in downtown Lake Oswego, they probably have one of the better downtowns in the suburbs for the Portland metro area. That's where the farmers market is. Same with West Lynn. I'm actually going to the West Lynn farmers market after I shoot this video. It's in downtown West Lynn. When you have a downtown, usually that's where the events are. There's usually more things going on, a place for like the population to gravitate towards. You don't exactly have that as much in Wilsonville. So if you're looking for an area that has a downtown, that's going to be missing for you a little bit. Again, the town center here is great. It's just a little bit of a different vibe. The downtowns in like Oregon City, West Lynn, Lake Oswego, they're very distinct. You know, it's very obvious where you're entering into the downtown and into a commercial area. You can see there's some history with some of the buildings. You can tell they're older. Again, Wilsonville, it's just all kind of just new, just strip mall, all new commercial buildings. All kind of looks the same regardless of where you go. Like I said, not a whole lot to dislike about Wilsonville. It's one of my favorite suburbs, and especially Villebois. That's why I'm in Villebois right now. Villebois, I would say, is probably one of the nicest neighborhoods in the entire Portland metropolitan area. Tons of homes, parks, there's a school here, there's shopping here. Pretty much everything you need if you live in Villebois is going to be walkable for you. And you've probably noticed as I'm walking around here, you know, I've mentioned the congestion. You'll see that when you come to Wilsonville, because you're probably gonna have to take the I-5 to get here. But you've probably noticed not a whole lot of congestion. It's midday on a Wednesday, I think it is. Not a whole lot of people out here. All the parks that I've walked by, I've only seen one person in the 3 parks that I've walked by since I've been walking around out here. So it almost feels like a little untapped, little hidden gem. Definitely someplace that I would personally consider living. Like I said, I do live close to this area. Again, if you have questions about moving to the Portland metropolitan area, really anywhere in Oregon, any kind of questions at all, you can always call us, text us, or email us. If this video helped you, I appreciate a thumbs up. Give us a like, lets us know we're doing a good job. And if you made it this far in this video, if you want to see more videos like this, make sure and subscribe to us. We make new videos about the Portland metro area every week. And until next time, take care, everyone.